Would you like to learn how to become bulletproof?
On today's show, we're going to be talking with our special guest, Steve Taubman. Stay tuned. It's Awaken Your Spirit.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Awaken Your Spirit. We are your hosts. I'm Dr. Aaron Garcia.
And I'm Veronica Mendez-Garcia, and our show's about inspiration, motivation, and developing the mindset to live a happy and abundant life.
We're live here every week on Mondays and Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Pacific Time, 12 p.m. Eastern. If you guys would like to join us here on the show, we are both live on Facebook and YouTube. On Facebook, just turn on the live notification button here in the feed. And if you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Click on that little bell icon. That way you know every time that we go live. We are excited today because we are going to be joined by our very special guest, best-selling author and speaker, Dr. Steve Taubman, and he's going to be talking to us about the mind, how to become bulletproof, and all the great work that he's doing in the healing space and personal development world. But before we get into that, we always like to start off with our first segment of our show, which is our inspirational moment with Veronica.
So inspirational moments is when I like to read something inspirational, and today I'm going to read a writing from my journal after meditating. It says, "Thank you for being in this space with us. There are so many people wanting to change the world or make the world a better place. There is so much happening around you. Before the world around you can change, you have to change the world within. The spirit within yourself who is longing to be healed. The spirit within who is wanting to let go. Letting go of all the pain, guilt, shame, fear, anger, and resentment. Letting go of all these negative emotions that hold you back from being the free, happy, loving spirit you truly are. All of you were created out of God's love, and you are special. You all have gifts and talents. You are all unique. By changing your worlds within, you can all together change the world around you. Help one another to uplift each other to a higher vibration."
Ooh. If you guys enjoy that, make sure you give some hearts, give some likes here into the feed. If you know if there's anybody that can benefit from the message that we share here on the show and also the message of our guests, make sure you tag somebody here into the feed and share this on your timeline, because we always say you never know who this message is going to impact. And there's always at least a few people that will reach out to us and say how much it's really helped them. Maybe that time where they were going through a really difficult time, and we just happened to show up into their feed, or a video popped up, and it made a whole difference to the world. So please share this with people. All right. So that was the inspirational moment with Veronica today. I want to say hello to a few people that are joining in with us. There we go. My tongue twisting is going on again. Stephen Smith has said, "Bulletproof."
Hey,
God knows we need that these days.
Yes, we do.
He also says, "Good morning." Coming from Sarasota, Florida. Hope everyone is doing
Awesome.
well today. We are doing amazing. And we have Craig Garcia says, "Great opening, Veronica Mendez."
Thank you.
What about my opening? No, we're all good. But thank you guys for joining with us here today. So we are excited that we're going to bring on our very special guest, Dr. Steve Taubman, and Veronica is going to introduce him for you guys.
All right. So Dr. Steve Taubman is a best-selling author and world-class speaker who has dedicated his life to showing people how to thrive through their challenges. He's written extensively on the application of contemplative practices in stressful situations and has spoken worldwide on mindset mastery for goal-oriented and helping professionals. He has spent half a lifetime exploring the nature of happiness and the remedy for emotional turmoil. His research has included neurology, holistic health, mindfulness, positive psychology, and hypnosis. Each of these disciplines is represented in Dr. Taubman's system for living a balanced life and loving a balanced life, free of anxiety and rich in accomplishment. Dr. Taubman's work includes his best-selling book, Unhypnosis. Ooh, I want to know about that. His sales mastery program, The Magic of Inner Selling, his online productivity masterpiece, Procrastination Annihilation,
Ooh, I like that one.
and his latest book on thriving through stress on life's battlefields, Bulletproof. He's also written hundreds of articles for major publications and has produced specialized hypnotic programs for removing mental barriers to health, happiness, and success. Let's welcome to the show Dr. Steve Taubman.
Hey, Steve, welcome to the show.
What a pleasure to be here. You know, I'm on a lot of shows, right? I'm on the radio and on podcasts probably almost every day. I am so glad to be with you guys personally. It really warms my heart. You know, we've had the opportunity to spend some time together, and that means a lot to me. And as I look in your background there, I see two of my favorite people. I see Einstein and Yogananda. And, so I know, you know, we are certainly cut from the same cloth. And may I also say, now that I'm just jumping out of the starting gate here, but I wanted to comment on your inspirational moment, Veronica. That was beautiful. It was really lovely. You know what it reminded me? You were talking about before you can change the world around you, you need to change within, to find the spirit within, and to shed the layers of neurosis and anxiety and depression and all those blockages that we have. Mm-hmm. And I just wrote an article for the Elephant Journal that's going to be coming out soon. And in the article, I was talking about the, you remember those, I think they call them stereograms. It's a picture with lots of colors all over it. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't look like there's anything there, but if you stare at it for a while.
Oh yeah, the 3D image.
Suddenly like a dinosaur kind of appears in 3 dimensions in front of you. And so I started the article by saying, oh my God, it's a dinosaur. and realizing that this is an amazing metaphor for what you were talking about. Mm. We're staring at this like splash of chaos that we call our lives, and we try to attribute meaning to it, but we don't stay there long enough and quietly enough and peacefully enough and patiently enough to allow the wisdom to be revealed, to allow ourselves to find that quiet space where real growth happens, the spirit as you described it. Yeah. And when you do the work of sitting quietly, then a lot of things are revealed in terms of what you can accomplish and your capacity to be on life's battlefields. Yeah. Like to find that core place inside, so what's going on the outside doesn't have the same impact on you as it would if you didn't have that guiding principle. Yeah. So we all need to find our inner T-Rex.
Yes, we do.
I like that. Quote Dr. Steve Taubman, find your inner T-Rex. So we got a chance to meet Dr. Taubman about, I want to say over a year ago, maybe about a year ago, I would say. Mm-hmm. And we just had an amazing conversation, and it was a very short conversation, and we didn't get a chance to really finish it, and we'll have many more to come. But what I found interesting is we actually came from a similar background, you and I.
Yeah, that's right.
And, we're both right now in the mindset kind of field, but we both started in the chiropractic field. And that's where your training started with. So what was that like? And how did you transition into the work that you're doing today?
Well, it's interesting because, for the people on the outside of this, it just sounds like the most bizarre, non sequitur in the world. But in reality, there's a lot of continuity and congruence between what I was doing and what you were doing as a chiropractor and what we now do in terms of mindset. And I think of myself now as a mental chiropractor. We used to say treating subluxations above atlas. In other words, in chiropractic, what we're trying to do is to remove interference to the natural communication between the brain and the body, in order for the brain to be able to make the necessary adjustments in the body and the body to the brain. So it's this two-way communication. And communication, for those of us who have studied holistic health or holistic organizational skills or whatever it is, holistic is this relationship between different parts of the same thing, and the communication between them is more important than any one part.
Yeah.
With a chiropractor, it's establishing communication between the brain and the body. But ever since the first amoeba split into two, suddenly all of well-being had to do with how well they're communicating with each other. And so how well are these different parts communicating with each other is a determinant of our well-being, our health. And now as we do this mindset work, we realize it's the same thing. It's like, where are the blockages between the brain and other parts of the brain, between belief and attitude, between presence and thought? I think of it that, at the very top of our pyramid is results. We want to get results, but in order to get results, we have to take certain kinds of actions. But in order to take those actions, we have to have a certain set of beliefs that fuel those actions. And below beliefs is presence, we have to have somewhere to stand to be able to even observe our own beliefs. And so our work becomes very much about quieting down, finding the eye of the storm, as you said, Veronica, finding the spirit, letting all that other stuff fall away. And that's how we get the strength to make the right kinds of decisions and live the right kind of life. So for me, the journey from chiropractic to mental health, if you will, or well-being or mindset, I think always carried that seed with it, that kind of congruent theme of holism. Now, on the outside world, it was a different kind of a world. It was a different kind of a process, right? Because I went from being a chiropractor to being a magician, to being a hypnotist, to writing books, to being on stages. So it's been an interesting journey.
But I think that's great that you allowed yourself to express that creativity, because I don't think I knew that you did like magic and stuff like that, because I'm interested in that too. I like really? That. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's going to have to, the next time we get together, we're going to be doing some magic jamming, right?
That's awesome.
Yeah. Spend a lot of time on stages doing that. And my experience has been that magic and hypnosis, even though they're forms of entertainment, they're also therapeutic in a way. Because if you can induce a state of astonishment, right? What does it take for us when we're living our lives in our heads and repeating the same messages that haven't really served us? Like Einstein, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. What does it take to break the pattern of thinking and kind of get that quiet place? And astonishment is one of the ways we do that. That moment when you're like, that's a teaching moment, right? Or the moment when you're hypnotized and your mind is quiet and you're more receptive. So all of the things that I'm doing have some impact on well-being, as well as just being fun.
Yeah. So the hypnosis part, did you do that mainly for entertainment or also for healing or therapy?
It's a great question. I started out interested in the entertainment side of it. No, actually, before that, I did start out because I was using some hypnotic techniques in my chiropractic practice. I had a very big practice that was mostly sports medicine.
Okay.
And, it became clear that athletes, and you and I both realized this, that, at the level of the elite athlete, the person who's gotten way up on, in the stratosphere of their craft, it's no longer about their physical capacity. It's only about their mind.
Yeah.
So I had to do some mindset work to help people heal more quickly, to be able to focus more effectively on the goal, to be able to be compliant with the care. And I found that was a useful tool. So I did use it therapeutically in that sense. But after I left practice, I studied hypnosis to be on stages. I was the official hypnotist for MTV's Spring Break.
Oh, cool.
Oh, that's the guy.
It's your job, but somebody's got to do it. And so those kinds of things serve both purposes, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that hypnosis has so many applications in terms of empowerment, removing fears, motivating people, and now what I've evolved into since the COVID pandemic started, and I'm not on stages. We're sitting home a lot more. Mm-hmm. Is that I'm starting to offer my services for one-on-one coaching to help people who are really serious about vanquishing whatever their physical malady is, right? So most people aren't really serious. Most people, they'll take themselves to the doctor and drop themselves off and get passive care, whether it's drugs or even an adjustment. All of those things are more of a passive approach. But the people who are really serious about well-being take it a step further, right? Yeah. I want to control my actions. I want to control my mind. I want to have some mastery over my own thinking, because my thinking has a direct impact on my health.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now I'm doing that. I've had, even just in the last couple of months, I've helped a few people with long-term anxiety to overcome anxiety. I've helped a few people with fibromyalgia to overcome the pain of fibromyalgia. Never touched them, right? It was all just, it was them doing it. It was just me showing them how.
That's awesome.
And that's been my experience. And it's kind of similar to my story. I went down a different path, but I did find that everything started in the mind.
Yeah.
It's funny, just as a practitioner, I always figured, how can we do better? How can we help more people? well, what was the cause of all of this? And it took me down the path to understanding the mind, because that's where it all started. Now, from the hypnosis standpoint, for those that might not have ever experienced it, and there's always that question, like, what do you do? Can you explain a little bit about what hypnosis is and how you go about doing it?
Well, the easiest explanation is to say that hypnosis is meditation plus suggestion. So it's guiding somebody into a state of deep relaxation so that their conscious mind, and particularly one part of their conscious mind, steps aside. And that part we call the critical factor. The critical factor, the inner critic. Don't tell me what to believe and what not to believe. It's the part of you, like if you're sitting in front of one of those like funny pictures that we're talking about, like the first time that I sat in front of one of those pictures and I had friends all around me and they were like, there's a dinosaur. And I was like, I'm convinced that either they're delusional or they're just screwing with me. Because it's obviously not true, right? Well, that's the inner critic saying it's obviously not true. I needed the inner critic to step aside to say, okay, well, get out of the way and let's enter into this experience and find out what is true. Well, we are constantly creating, let's see, wait a minute. We got Abigail asking if I could read this. Let's see if I can. Can hypnosis help a mental illness? We'll talk about that in a minute. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, we'll go back to that. Okay.
Yeah, so we'll roll back to that one. So we are constantly standing guard in front of our own subconscious mind, preventing new beliefs and new strategies from entering. And in the meantime, our conscious mind, we are constantly telling our minds how to treat us. So if you grew up saying, I'm stupid, or I'm ugly, or I'm not, confident, or whatever it is, our words aren't just descriptive, they're also predictive. When I say something like that over and over again to myself, I'm not just describing the condition that I think I'm already in. I'm actually reprogramming it back into myself.
Yeah.
So I'm basically programming my own subconscious mind in a very unresourceful way. So as a hypnotist, my job is basically to bypass your conscious mind, or to get your conscious mind to understand that and cooperate, and then program your subconscious mind to believe more empowering beliefs that are going to support the actions you want to take and the results you want to get, whether they're health related or related to your your success in life, or just general happiness. So again, we're taking the guard away from the door at the nightclub. And we're kicking out all the all the rowdies, and then we're letting all the good people in, and then we're putting the guard back in place.
But sometimes we find too, and I love the analogy because I've used that analogy quite a bit. But when people think hypnosis, they think it's somebody doing it to them. But in a sense, our whole life is a form of hypnosis. It's all about suggestion, right? It's like what the words that other people say to us that get repeated, and we tend to believe that if it goes through into that subconscious mind. Again, the bouncer that is out of the way, and then also what we watch on television. We're being bombarded by so much information, and then the strongest one is how we start to believe when we tell ourselves. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, well, that getting back to my concept for the book Bulletproof, it's the notion is you want to be bulletproof against the things that are being fired at you, and what's being fired at you are those negative thoughts and whatnot. And the thoughts of self-rejection, that's like you shooting yourself. It's the bullets of self-rejection. It's just one more form of bullets going in. And you're right, when you're young, you're being programmed by your environment, by your family, by your church, by your by the bully next door, whatever it is, it's having an impact. And eventually you pick up the ball and you start to do it to yourself because you've already been programmed that way. And therefore, you're showing up that way. And if you're showing up that way, you're going to say, I'm showing up that way. And you're not going to make a distinction between the fact that it's just your experience gained from under the umbrella of a certain belief. I'd only believe this about myself if I already believed it, and then everything that I did was sort of continuing to filter that way. We only see this much of the world, right? We're only seeing a little teeny tiny bit of reality. Yeah. I tell people that your conscious mind is only capable of absorbing and processing up to maybe 10 bits of information conservatively speaking, right? My phone number is 802-236-3146. What's my phone number?
Huh?
Yeah.
802-346-3146.
She's good.
But in general, okay, so prove me wrong. But yeah, but it's true. Most people can't hold even that much information in their brains, and yet their subconscious is busy beating their hearts and making them breathe, and having their blood flow appear in certain ways, and constantly having an impact on every little every little microscopic aspect of your being. So you've got to get to that subconscious if you want to make changes. So it's not weird or trancy. It's a great feeling.
Yeah.
So in order to, I guess, dehypnotize yourself.
Unhypnotized, if you want to use any.
Yeah. The title unhypnosis, which caught your sense.
Yeah. So how would people be able to unhypnotize themselves?
Well, that's the whole journey, right? The whole journey is, first you have to decide that it's worth doing that there's something else. Like, how do you see the dinosaur? First, you have to decide that, those people aren't crazy, that there is a path, there is a way. And then you got to sit there and be patient and learn how to overcome aversion. What is aversion? Aversion is, your natural distaste for some experience. Right. So I'm sitting here waiting for the dinosaur to appear, and it's boring and it's uncomfortable. And all my friends are looking at me and it's embarrassing. And now I'm getting mad. All those feelings are feelings of aversion. And those are the feelings that made me walk away from the dinosaur. Over having seen the dinosaur. Right. Well, that's what it is in life. It's like if you want to live a beautiful life and wake up from the hypnotic state that you're living in, you're going to have to be patient, and you're going to have to be able to withstand the aversion that you're going to feel when you try to do that kind of work, because you're going to have to meditate, right? You're going to have to do some kind of mindfulness practice, because you have to take charge of where your attention goes. You can't, nobody's going to give that to you. You can't earn a degree in that.
Yeah.
You can't buy it in the store. You've got to develop you've got to develop the wherewithal. And so you've got to have a discipline, which means you've got to be somebody who's willing to live by a code of conduct. It's like, I get up in the morning and I do this, whether I feel like it or not, right? And then people who are really successful, they've got their disciplines, and they know those disciplines. They know that discipline is freedom. If I live within the context of this discipline, it's going to allow me to do what I need to do until I get the benefit on the other side.
Got it.
But it starts with willingness. It starts with, okay, I'm going to sit here. I'm gonna willingly suspend my disbelief.
Yeah.
Even though I think there's no dinosaur there. I mean, smart people are telling me there's a dinosaur.
So we do have I'm going to go back to that question that Abigail had, since we have the time now.
Yes.
And she says, "Oh, I'm not sure if you can read this," which we can.
I can.
Can hypnosis help with mental illness, such as dementia?
I don't know. Here's the way I would respond to that. When people reach advanced stages of dementia, we don't know whether or not we're able to get through in order to even do the hypnosis in the first place, because it does require a certain degree of focus. On the other hand, I would say that if somebody is beginning to experience states of dementia, my mom died with Alzheimer's, my grandfather died with Alzheimer's. I've had a lot of friends. I've got a neighbor right now who's, just bought a new gazebo for his backyard because he forgot that he bought one 2 days ago.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I see this around me, and what I encourage people to do is to use tools like hypnosis and mindfulness side by side with one another while they still have enough mental capacity to do the work. And the reason for that is, even if you start losing some of the memories, some of the things, the basic functionalities that you had before, if you're going to end up with dementia, you'd rather have dementia like Larry does rather than the way my mother did. Because Larry is it's just a memory, oh well, right? In other words, he's not attached to whether or not he remembers. Now, whether or not we finally find a cure for dementia is another conversation. But in the meantime, if somebody's going to be gradually losing resources, losing access to information, their attitude toward losing that is going to be very important, right? Because if your attitude is that you're clinging and you're craving and you're angry and you're freaked out and you're terrified of the experience, it's going to be a much more miserable downturn.
Yeah.
And if you're like, oh, well, now I don't have to do this because I just don't have the capacity to do that. Like my memory is probably not what it used to be, but thank God I've got one of these, right? Because I could, I could tell it to remind me of things.
Yeah.
So what we need to do if we're in those kinds of situations, particularly the various kinds of dementia, whether it's Alzheimer's or benign dementia, whatever it is this is the time. It's a wake-up call. This is the time to do the inner work, to find inner peace. Because if you're going to be losing things like your memory, things that you've attributed to who you are as a person, you really want to be able to find peace around that.
Yeah,
it's interesting. And for those who have any other questions for Dr. Taubman, please let us know. You can put those here into the feed. I want to say hello to Amelia, who's saying good morning. She's joining with us. Abigail got the first 3 numbers of your phone number, and that was about it. That's all she got.
That's hilarious.
But you mentioned two points. You repeated once about the willingness. It's like, are we attached to our belief system? Are we attached to the things that are going on? Are we willing to make those changes?
Right.
And we persevere through that. And then the other thing was, I'm trying to my mind was going to think. So, memory. So when you talk about also self-suggestion from before, I forgot what I was going to say, right? But how many people do we say, I keep forgetting. I'm so forgetful. And as you mentioned earlier, like, what are we telling ourselves? I keep forgetting. I forget a lot.
And you're programming
yourself. You program yourself to forget things. Where you can, what would be a different way that they can change that type of a thought process?
Well, not only do I have a theoretical way, I will tell you in practical terms what works.
Okay.
Well, I've been doing it, and it's fascinating. I started doing this back, I've done a lot of performing both as a hypnotist and as a magician, and I've done a lot of like high-end stuff in big rooms with lots and lots of people. You're welcome, Abigail.
Mm-hmm.
So what I decided one day was, wouldn't it be interesting? Wouldn't it be fun? Wouldn't it be impressive if I could just remember the names of everybody that I meet? So I said, I've got a great memory. I'm going to remember everybody's name here. And so I did my close-up magic, walking around, that's kind of like the cocktail party part of my experience. And I'm walking table to table doing close-up tricks and introducing myself to everybody as I go. And then I'm doing my big stage show afterwards. And I'm on stage and I do my show and I finish the show and I say, I'd like to thank each and every one of you. Thank you, Veronica. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Abigail. Thank you, Amy. And I just named everybody. It was 250 people in the room and I named them. That was my finale. Now I had never done it before. And I quite frankly didn't use any kind of real technique. It was strictly the intention, the power of intention. We are so capable of so much more than we realize. Mm-hmm. So, I do teach a memory technique for remembering people's names. I say, if I'm introduced to you, you say, hi, I'm Aaron. I say, Aaron, it's nice to meet you. I don't say it's nice to meet you, Aaron. I say your name first because it's called bracketing. The next thing I do is I say a sentence that ends with your name. So I say, Aaron, it's nice to meet you. How long have you been doing the show, Aaron? So it's Aaron at the end of both sentences. And then I say your name to myself 3 times in a row. Not out loud, that would be crazy. But Aaron. So that's the technique, but behind the technique is the intention. You got to walk in the room, you got to say, I'm great with names. I remember names, and then I'm going to really do it this time. So I know that the power of intention with a little bit of technique can skyrocket your capacity to do that. Because I could just as easily walk into a room and meet people, and as soon as I walk away, not know the name. And then I could say to myself, I'm bad with names.
Mm. And how many people here are guilty of saying that?
Yeah.
I know I've said it in the past.
Sure.
So I wanted to go back to Abigail's dementia thing. We have a book. It's called Heal Your Body from A to Z by Louise Hay.
Yes.
And it talks about like the probable cause, and it's usually like an emotional thing. And it does have dementia here, and it says a refusal to deal with the world as it is, hopelessness and anger. And then the new thought pattern would be, I am in my perfect place and I am safe at all times.
I love that book because it really does, everything that she says is very sensible. Mm-hmm. And she's giving you some affirmations that are probably in keeping with, the trend in that particular thing. So if I were dealing with dementia or somebody I loved was dealing with dementia, that's exactly what I would recommend. Now, to what extent is any condition going to reverse itself? We in chiropractic, we used to say limitation of matter, right? I'm going to remove the interference and I'm going to hope that your brain and your body are going to get in contact with each other and that it's not too late to heal the things that have already gone too far.
Yeah.
That part I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
But I'd still rather do it.
yeah, it can't hurt, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
So we're talking about becoming bulletproof, or being bulletproof, which is the name of your new book that you've published. And so what does it mean? We talked about being bulletproof, where you're not allowing all the negativity, the negative suggestions, the ridicules, the criticism. And so we can become more resilient, as you said, and we have intentions. Mm-hmm. So that way we can start to retrain that part of our mind. So that way we can start to, as we say, we can start to create the things that we want in our life. We can start to be more happy. And so I wanted to go back, and how was that journey for you personally? Was this a part of your experience at all, where you realized one day that, wow, I've got all these things going on in my mind. I've let all of these suggestions into my mind, and how did you change that?
That's a great question. It was definitely a long and arduous journey, and it's still not over, because I think we're all still trying to find our way to the ultimate happiness, to a place of true enlightenment or transformation. But looking at myself now compared to how I was, as, let's say, a teenager or an adolescent, when I felt nothing but shame and remorse and insecurity and anxiety and depression, I live a very different life now, right? But that stuff was there. And at the time I would have said, they talk about our ideal being unconditional happiness. I want to be happy no matter what. I had unconditional unhappiness. I'd be unhappy no matter what, because the inner stuff was so powerful and strong that it didn't really matter what the outer stuff was, right? If you're making yourself good and miserable, it doesn't really matter what's going on around you. You could say, well, get in a more favorable situation, or, picture yourself in the woods or whatever it was. There was just too much turmoil. Mm-hmm. So what I learned was, for me, that I had to sit with the pain. Mm-hmm. Right. I had to be able to sit quietly. It's like, again, the picture, and to sit and observe what I thought of as the reasons why my life didn't work. Mm-hmm. Like pierce through the thoughts all the way through to the feelings, and pierce through the feelings all the way through to the sensations, and pierce through those all the way to the particles, like what's really going on. Like when you go really deep inside of yourself, if I'm sitting here and I feel scared, I could act scared or react or run away, which was what we usually do. Or I could sit here long enough to inquire, like go deeper. What does scared feel like in my body, right? And I might find out, as I put my attention on what scared feels like in my body, that it's actually trying to hide another feeling that's underneath it. Yeah. So I sit there a little bit longer, and then that one begins. And as I watch the feelings with remarkable compassion and love, and not reject myself, then I start to get closer and closer to a place of inner silence, right? Where that stuff, it's like it's starting to dissolve, it's starting to fall away. So that my journey has been this gradual process of all that baggage gradually falling away. Now, at any one point along the way, would I say that I was better? Maybe not, because I wouldn't really know it. It's all incremental, right? Mm-hmm. But you know how you haven't seen somebody, like a kid that, your nephew or your niece, and you haven't seen them for like 5 years. Yeah. And you go back and you see them after 5 years, and they're so tall, right? And you say, you're so tall, and they're like, because to them it was just like they never noticed the change, but you noticed it because you've been away for a while. It's the same with this. You will notice, looking back, after now it's I just turned 64, so at this point in my life, I look back over my life at all the different phases I've been in, and it's like, wow, I'm pretty good. I'm pretty happy. It's like we got this thing going on called the coronavirus pandemic, and all these people are like miserable and sad and scared, and I'm not. I have compassion for the people who are suffering, but there's nothing going on right now that I feel warrants misery.
Yeah.
Right? Because you can take any one piece of it, right? Well, people are dying. Yeah, they're always dying. People are always dying, right? Mm-hmm. Well, there are people who are close to me. Yeah, that was going to happen at some point too. Well, I'm sick. Well, you're going to get sick from time to time, and yeah, but I may die. Well, yeah, that's going to happen too. And I don't care what hits me, because it's like, I'm not it, right? I'm not my thoughts. I'm not my feelings. I'm not my body. I'm the awareness of all that. And if I could sit in the place of awareness, then all the stuff that's happening is just stuff that's happening. It's not stuff that's eating away at me. Yeah. So I can be in that storm and still be productive, and still be happy, and still have a sense of humor. And if I feel sadness or fear, then I look at that too.
Mm-hmm.
Just one more thing to witness too.
And do you find that most people just like the emotional side of it, like they don't want to deal with it because it doesn't feel good, so they just stuff it or they put it aside, but it's really creating all this chaos internally.
Yeah, that's absolutely what's happening. And again, it comes right down to the one word I used before, which is aversion. Our suffering is directly related to the degree of aversion that we experience. If you can train yourself to be comfortable with the uncomfortable, you'll be free.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? How do you train yourself to be comfortable with the uncomfortable? Well, I'll tell you what I'm doing now, because there's a lot of different ways to do it, right? Here's the way I'm doing it now. You know Wim Hof?
I've heard of it, yeah.
The Iceman, he's this guy who gets, he teaches a course. You could buy his course and learn his system. And it's basically 3 steps. One is mindset management. Where are you putting your focus? The other is breathing techniques, and the breathing techniques have an impact on the oxygenation of your blood and whether or not you're in an alkaline versus an acidic state. And then the third part is exposure to cold water. Right? So he gets into like an ice cold bath. Wim Hof has 26 world records. He climbed Mount Everest in his shorts in record time.
Oh my gosh.
He ran a marathon above the Arctic Circle barefoot. He swam under the polar ice caps, like 300 yards or 300 feet or something like that. And he's been submerged in ice water for 1 hour and 42 minutes without having any impact on his internal body temperature.
Wow.
And he says, I'm not special. It's just the training I've done and anybody can do it. So you could do it, right? Yeah. So the training involves, doing these breathing exercises, which make you feel weird and dizzy, and you do them anyway, because your natural inclination is to be averse to that weird feeling, but you're going to do it and get used to things that make you feel weird. Then you get into the ice cold shower. Mm-hmm. And what do? You go, and you start having this like very intense reaction to it. And that's a very normal reaction. We go into instantaneous aversion by default.
I'd have to pray a loud, high-pitched scream. And Veronica's like, what happened?
That's it, exactly. And then you're like, okay, you can do this, you can do this, you can do it. And eventually, after a period of time and after a matter of practice, you get to the point where you're like, I dare you to piss me off. I dare you to make me cold. Go ahead, cold water, bring it on. You get to this like place of nothing's gonna get me, right? So I'm going to get into cold water so that I'm going to have this instantaneous feeling that it's a bad thing, but it's not a bad thing. I'm going to work my mind in such a way that I can eventually be at peace with it. And now I just take a shower in cold water. And it doesn't matter how many minutes it is. At first it was 1 minute, and then I had to stretch to 1.5 minutes. And eventually I got to 2 minutes, and now I can get into the shower ice cold and take my whole shower. I just did it this morning, and it's fine. Yeah. So that's an exercise a very tangible exercise for learning how to overcome aversion. Mm. And if you can do it with one thing, it will work with other things.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's interesting you mentioned the ice water. We were just talking about that, I think, last night, about like, would you be able to go in like an ice bath? Like, who would be able to stay in there the longest? But it's very interesting. When I was a kid, I was about maybe 8 or 9. I would challenge myself, and I went to the store with my mom and we bought a bag of ice, and I was wearing shorts and I put it on my lap, and I was trying to see how long I could last with the bag of ice on the way home. It was maybe a 5 or 6 minute car ride. I left it there the whole time, but I was using my mind to override what I was feeling. So it's interesting that you mentioned.
That's why you are a beautiful, amazing, spiritual human being now, is that you've adopted that attitude in life. Right. Most people have like the don't bring that anywhere near me attitude about things. Don't make me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I think it's really cool that you did that. I think you've probably done many things like that in your life. You've challenged yourself to face your own discomfort, and it always grows you.
Yeah, it does. Like speaking in public. Yeah. So I did karaoke in front of like hundreds of people, and so it's a uncomfortable feeling, but then it pushes you to go through it, even though it's uncomfortable. And then afterwards, it's like, oh, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, I'm so impressed. I think that's beautiful, and it's like doing things that go against our nature. I tell people in my work that as we go through this process, I'm gonna have you do certain things. I've done a hypnotic session, and then I'm teaching people about mindfulness. I'm gonna have them do some kind of a body scan, like a mindfulness meditation. I'm gonna have them use anchoring techniques to kind of anchor in positive feelings. And I'm also gonna have them take something that they don't like to do and do it, or something that they do like to do and not do it.
Ah.
All right. Whatever that is. But not to do it like, I can't believe I can't do this. You got to do it with the attitude that I'm going to explore what it feels like. I'm going to be the witness to my own resistance. And it's fascinating. It's just a beautiful transformation.
So that's part of the work that you're doing now?
Yes. Yeah. So now as I work with, people with anxiety, with pain, or, some illnesses that seem to have a relationship to stress, like psoriasis, asthma, diabetes. These things, they don't exist in a vacuum. It's not just a physical experience. There's also a mental component to it. And it's, this idea of psychoneuroimmunology, that, our thoughts influence our nervous systems, and our nervous systems influence our immune systems.
Yeah.
And all of that influences the release of neurohormones. And, am I bathed in cortisol or in adrenaline, or am I bathed in serotonin and, other, neurohormones that help me to relax? Am I more sympathetic or parasympathetic? All those things are influenced by your thoughts.
Yeah.
Right. So when I do this kind of work now, if I meet somebody who's got diabetes, or meet somebody who's got, as I said, psoriasis, or one of those kinds of conditions, I'm not trying to heal the condition. What I'm doing is I'm trying to have them access these healing modalities within themselves. And so they could use suggestion. Power of suggestion is very, very powerful.
Yeah.
Most of us, again, the same way we talk negative things to ourselves, we also visualize negative things to ourselves all the time. You picture the worst outcome.
Yeah.
And if you have psoriasis, what are you saying to yourself every day? You're like, why do I have this bad skin? Why do I have this scaly skin? I want to get rid of this scaly skin. What are you doing? What is your subconscious mind here? Scaly skin, scaly skin, scaly skin. And it says, okay, cool. You can have it. So what do? We say, okay, let's get you really relaxed. Let's open your mind. Let's move the guard aside. And now let's have you envision perfect skin, clear skin. And repeat that to yourself, and imbibe that, and see that vision over and over again. And envision your healing qualities coming forth to help you have clear skin, not to get rid of the bad skin.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating because it's all a mental process. And I'm astonished because I've witnessed this in both clinical practice, when people deal with like the emotional side. I've seen pains go away, digestive problems start to go away. I mean, I used to deal with cancer patients and MS, and I see a lot of things that are brought on by stress. Yeah. But even just that concept of the suggestion, where I saw a guy who wore glasses his whole entire life, and I didn't do it personally with him, but I saw him go through an experience, and like after he opened stuff up, that was a mental process. Like he didn't have to wear glasses anymore, and it's just fascinating. The nervous system can change in an instant, and I just, that's where the belief comes in when you experience it. Is like you continue to do it more, but sometimes at the beginning you might be a little skeptical or hesitant. I don't know if I believe in all of this. Is it going to work? But when you see it, it's like, wow, there's so much more that we don't really know. And if we can just, we hear that we only use about 10% of our brain. What they're saying is it's not that you can't access that, it's that you only use it. So we don't
know how, it's also like, if you knew how, if you had enough experiences under your belt of having like directed your energy in a certain way and gotten a certain outcome, your belief system would strengthen, right? You've had that experience. So have I. I've seen those things happen. And we're all still ultimately somewhat skeptical, right? It's like, I've seen some miracles happen. I know that miracles happen, but the miracles you said happen, I'm like, I don't know about that. we doubt, because we want to keep that sense of certainty. It's like we're addicted to certainty. We're addicted to being right. Like as human beings, we're pattern making machines. I want to know the world makes sense, so that I want to know that when this is how it is. And I'd rather be right and miserable than wrong and happy. Right? It's this crazy thing that we do. It's like, no, miracles, no, sorry, I can't see those, right? I can't see those. That can't happen. But we know it happens. We've seen it happen over and over and over again. I've seen it in chiropractic practice. I've seen it in hypnosis. I've seen it spontaneously in other areas. And, then, people who have done deep meditative work and have had massive healings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what we know there's neuroplasticity. The nervous system can change. We know that we're constantly changing over new cells. We know that our thoughts are things and that they direct the growth of those cells, and they can make better or worse tissue. So, we should never be in a position where we're saying this can't happen. And unfortunately, we've imbued that power to our doctors, right? You go to the doctor, you've got 6 months to live. Well, thanks for nothing. What have you just done? An authority figure has just told me I've got 6 months to live, and I've lived my life training myself to believe whatever that guy says.
Yeah.
That's going to me. All right.
Yeah.
So I've got friends who are like, yeah, later, buddy. I'm shielding myself from that belief system, and I'm going to instead envision perfect health. And I'm going to work on that every day, and I'm going to kind of practice the craft of being more and more in the state of perfect health. And I've got at least 2 or 3 friends that I could think of right now who have gone back to the doctor after they were given those kind of diagnoses, and the doctor said, I don't understand it. Maybe our first time was a misdiagnosis. The tumor is completely gone.
Misdiagnosis.
Because they can't admit that that this thing could change because it would blow their minds.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So instead, it's just like, well, maybe we were wrong the first time.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the ones where there's a picture of a tumor and then this tumor shrinks or disappears without any treatment. It's like, well, how did that happen?
Yeah, it didn't. We're gonna brush that one under the rug pretty much.
We're gonna this broadcast to stop right now.
It's the ostrich hole, right? If your head's in the hole, then nothing's happening outside of the hole.
And so I have a comment. Stephen says this conversation is the flow I love being a part of. So thank you for being here, Stephen.
Thank you.
He also says, I love how you teach, Dr. Steve. I'm very connected to what you're referring to with respect to thought, health, and overcoming negative and unhealthy habits. Thanks for sharing these great techniques.
My pleasure. Yeah, this is I feel like we all have a purpose in life, right? We all have something we're supposed to be doing here. And I also think that sometimes our early pains are our greatest gifts.
Yeah.
Right? Because I do talk to teenagers sometimes, and I talk to people who have been stuck for a long time in unresourceful patterns. And the reality is that stuff is the seed. It's the source of your gift, right? So my stuff was anxiety and depression and hopelessness, and nothing's ever going to change. And I had to learn how to pierce into that and then figure out what was going on inside of myself, and then translate it into a language that people could understand. So that's why I talk in a lot of metaphors. Everything I'm saying is it's a metaphor, it's a picture, it's a story, it's an example, because then it becomes clearer, like what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And this is what you share in your books, in your articles. And in fact, your latest book now is Bulletproof.
Yeah.
And so tell us a little bit about Bulletproof and what people can learn from that. There it is.
Let me point out the cover first. Now, I didn't design it, but I think it's a brilliant cover. So here's this one.
Give me a second here. So let's bring a full shot here. There you go.
Oh, there you go. So what if everything that bugged you, blocked you, or brought you down didn't? And so we have this powerful businesswoman in the middle there, and she's got this kind of force field around her. She's got that bulletproof shield, and I call it a semi-permeable membrane because love gets in and joy gets in, but misery stays out. So look at all the things that are vying for her attention, right? There's people yelling at her in a bullhorn, and there's the headset, and there's the pen and the paper, and there's the phone, all the stuff, all that technology. But my favorite part is the sandwich.
I know.
It's like, have a sandwich. That's the ultimate distraction. But okay, I guess I have to go full screen now. But the book is it's a very readable book because it's got lots and lots of stories, and it's got, for every one of the 5 steps that this book teaches and describes, there are at least 10 specific things you can do. So it's not just theoretical and it's not academic, although I do share some of the statistics about how much misery we're living in now and all that kind of thing. But you see, what happens is people say, like, for example, it starts with, we talked about the power of intention. You've got to have the intention. I'm going to live a happy life. That's the way I want to live my life. I want to find inner peace. I want to find joy. I want to live happy. Now, if you say that to somebody, say, your first step is declaring happiness when they say, oh, that's just stupid because I'm not happy. And if I say I'm happy, I'm just lying, right?
Mm.
Or you're telling me to just put on a happy face. None of which is what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is a stance. We're talking about a yardstick for how you're living your life. Where are you on the yardstick of happiness, not the yardstick of money, right?
Yeah.
So your goal is to move toward happiness. That my intention is happiness. It's not to say I'm now going to pretend I'm happy or forget about everything else that used to make me miserable. I've got to just understand that my goal is to move up that yardstick, up that ladder. So then we've got to get into what we talked about earlier, the disciplines. Discipline is freedom, the living by a code. And what does that mean? And how can you employ that in your life? What are a dozen things you could start doing today that are simple, that would like begin to structure your life in a way that would maximize your chance of achieving that happiness you're seeking, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then third is strengthening your focus muscles. You know, how good are you at being able to sit and look at that thing until the dinosaur appears? How, you know, can you focus? And can you play with your focus, right? Because with the dinosaur, it's like, you know, it's in there somewhere, but it's like playing with the nuances of focus and knowing that you're going to be getting distracted left and right, but you got to keep bringing your brain back again, bring the puppy back to the paper.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like the meditative part of it. And then we get to what I call leaning in, you know, the leaning in process, or I also sometimes call it piercing. So piercing is when you are experiencing stress, misery, anguish, anxiety, any of those feelings, what do you usually do with it? It's usually fight or flight, right? So let's say you have a fight with somebody, not with each other because you guys never fight, but you know what I'm saying? Like if you ever fight with somebody and now you're attached, and what are you attached to? You're attached to them realizing that you're right and they're wrong. And if you could finally prove to them that they're wrong, then you could finally return to a state of inner peace and happiness. Mm. The problem is most people won't cooperate with you. Mm. Like they'll refuse to believe that you're right. And so that means that you're a victim of them because, you know, until they, you know, acquiesce, then you're doomed to misery. So you've got to do something else, right? So leaning in means, okay, something happened, a stimulus. We're doing something, or maybe somebody ran over my foot, or, you know, whatever it is, whatever you saw something on the news, it's a stimulus. And then typically what we do is we take that stimulus and we get into a state of reaction and we start trying to fix the problem, make the person believe me or whatever it is, or just run away. But what we don't do is we don't do the inner work, right? So leaning in is like, okay, there was a stimulus and now I'm feeling something. Mm-hmm. I don't like what I'm feeling. You know, I'm feeling this intense energy inside of me. And it's all your fault. But, you know, but it doesn't matter whose fault it is. It's the empty boat. The Buddhists call it the empty boat. It's like you're sitting on a boat and all of a sudden another boat knocks into your boat and you go turn and you start to yell at the person in the other boat and you realize there's nobody in the boat. It's just a boat that floats. So who do you yell at, right? There's nobody left to yell at. It's the same thing here. It's like, you know, so somebody did something and now you're feeling all these feelings, but you have to treat it like an empty boat. I've got all these feelings and there's no one to blame. It's just because it's in the here and now. Right now, this is how I feel. Doesn't matter what caused it.
Yeah.
So as long as I'm feeling this, what am I going to do with it? Well, what I'm going to do with it after practicing this for the last 30 years is I'm going to lean into it. Oh, I've got all this energy inside my body. I wonder where I feel it. I wonder what it feels like. I wonder how it's changing. I wonder if it's moving. I wonder if it's becoming more intense. I wonder how long it's going to take before it starts to dissolve. Mm. And so all of my inquiry has nothing to do with the trigger. It only has to do with my inner experience. Yeah. And if I can discipline myself to stay with the inner experience by leaning into it, by being a non-judgmental inquirer into it, just noticing the feelings, guess what happens? It dissolves. It goes away, right? Mm-hmm. Nothing is forever. It's like you're looking at a fire, and if you stop throwing logs on the fire, it's going to have to go out.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So stop throwing thoughts onto your misery. It's going to go out. Now, once that happens, you can return to the situation that triggered it and you'll find it's a different situation. Maybe it solved itself. Maybe you just have more resources for how to deal with it. Maybe you're not so triggered, so you're not triggering the other person by your energy, and they listen to you now. But
Yeah.
somehow it's a different situation, and you did it without having anything to do with them at all. It's all in the game. So that's the fourth step, right? So we said, first of all, it's the declaration, the intention about happiness. Secondly, it's the living by a code. Third, it's the work that you do to become a better focuser. Fourth, it's the willingness to lean in. And then fifth is what I call assembling your lifeboats. Assembling your lifeboats. What are your lifeboats? What is it? What happens when you're like so intensely upset that you can't stop yourself? Like you just know you're a raw nerve. Well, then you've got to have pre-prepared lifeboats, people in your life who are able to like talk you down or allow you to kind of talk yourself out of that energy, but not somebody who's going to fan the flames of discontent, but somebody who's going to make you feel better.
Yeah.
Or you also have systems, maybe you've already, written them up. The next time I feel really bad, I'm going to take 10 deep breaths. I'm going to run around the house 3 times. Have your systems and you use them, right? Just like when I was a pilot, and if, and this happened to me once, I was at 8,500 feet flying over Buffalo, New York in like about a 2-mile thick cloud cover, and my engine went out.
Oh.
I couldn't see anything, so I didn't have an engine. Well, I didn't panic. What I did was I brought the visor down and I had my checklist. Do this. And I did. I took the steps, and step 7 fixed the problem. And then I continued my flight.
Wow.
Well, most people panic.
Well, we spend most of our lives panicking. That's why we have panic attacks.
Yeah.
Wow. And so where could people get a hold and find your book, and so that way they can learn these steps and start practicing things on their own and we'll get to how people can get a hold of you if they want to go even deeper.
Sure. Well, I've made a little gift available to your listeners, your viewers, that the first chapter of this book is available as a free digital download. So if you go to bestofsteve.com, we'll send you the first chapter of the book. We'll also get you onto my mailing list to get my weekly wisdom tips. It's just more of this. If you didn't like this, you won't like that. But it's just these kinds of principles and ideas and a couple tips and tools you can use. And that's just going to Best of Steve. So go ahead, join our community and get a hold of the first chapter. Try before you buy. If you like it, the end of the book will pop you over to Amazon, and you can get the book there, and we'll also send you another free gift. So that's a great opportunity. And then if you're just looking to join my world, go to stevetaubman.com. That's where all my my books are listed, and my speaking, and whatever. It's just kind of Steve Taubman Central. And then the last thing I was going to suggest is, if you happen to be somebody or know somebody who's dealing with a physical issue, right? We were talking about those, the pain, anxiety, or stress-related illness, and you'd like to find out if I'd be somebody you'd be interested in working with, go to suggestionhealing.com. And I'm sorry I didn't give that to you before to put up, but it's just suggestionhealing.com. And you'll learn a little bit about psychoneuroimmunology. You'll learn a little bit about the body-mind connection. And you could also set up a free consultation with me if you like.
Make sure I spelled this right.
Yeah.
Healing.com.
You got it.
I put it in the feed also.
Perfect. And then Veronica will put the link in there too. We'll make sure we have all these links in the feed for you guys to just click on here so you guys can go back to that. But just want to thank you so much for being here with us today, Dr. Steve. And
yeah, thank you.
Always a pleasure.
The conversation.
You guys are awesome. I feel like, we're all doing similar work. We're all trying to help people get free.
Yeah.
And I really, it means a lot to me to get the opportunity to have these conversations with people who are wise and who are, kind of living in that space. So thanks for having me.
Yeah,
absolutely.
One last question.
And one last comment.
Okay.
Steven says it's a green dinosaur and it's eating some yellow flowers.
You know what? It's funny you say that, because when I realized I was going to be talking about that, I went looking for that original one, the one with the dinosaur, and I couldn't find it. Yeah. So if you've got the link to that dinosaur picture, Stephen, I expect you're going to pop that one up here.
So my last question is, are you still doing the magic and the hypnosis shows?
Oh yeah, not as much. I mean, right now, nobody's doing nothing in front of anybody. But I haven't lost that. I still get a lot of joy out of it. And I still feel like the hypnosis is a great teaching device. It's a great metaphor, because I can make people laugh, and it also raises some very interesting questions about how do our minds work.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Awesome. So guys, Dr. Steve Taubman, thank you for being here. Get connected with him. Go to all his links there if you want to read part of his book. If you want to do anything more, go to stevetaubman.com. We are just very grateful to have you here today and sharing your wisdom and your knowledge with us. And we're just glad to have you as a friend and a colleague in this space. And I hope you guys enjoyed him too. And if you found that interesting, please share this video on your timelines, because there might be somebody who might need to hear this message today.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
All right. So hang out here just for a second, Dr. Steve, and we'll be with you in just a little bit. But thank you for being here.
Thanks a lot. See you guys.
Bye.
Well, there you go. We hope you guys really enjoyed our guest today, Dr. Steve Taubman. Again, go to his links if you guys enjoyed that. Just give us some hearts, give us some likes here. Remember, we're live here every week on Mondays and Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 p.m. Eastern. It's just if you're watching here on Facebook, make sure you turn on the live notification button to get reminded each time we go live. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on the little bell icon that you get notified each time we have a video posted.
All right. So thank you for joining us, and we will see you Wednesday.
Next time. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.